So while our guest joins in, let's start. It's five
Yes,
o'clock with the club tradition.
yes, yes.
Good morning. Welcome everyone today for today's guest talk. So today we have Janki who started SHB Foundation in 2014. And when I came to know about it, I was very curious. Through Monica, I got to know about it. And I asked whether we could ask Janki to come and to be as a guest on one of the Sunday because I was so thrilled with what SHB is doing. So it's a completely volunteer-based social foundation. We'll hear more about it from Janki and creating such an amazing space, energy, and very interesting programs. We are very pleased to have person like Janki with us today. And over to you, Janki. We would love to listen to you. And also, I would like Kiran to highlight the power of listening as Kiran is facilitator and we are going through a beautiful track from him. And with that listening note from Kiran, all stage is all yours, Janki. Very excited to hear from you and interact with you. So welcome to 5M Club, Janki, and all the guests who are joining us today.
It's a delight, Janaki, to have you. We have met before, and I've always
Yeah.
felt like engaging with you. Our worlds intersect at a few places, and I would say that this week, this month theme is Heartistry. And Heartistry is about discovering your heart song, unraveling that. And then we've had weekly themes. So we first looked at the 5 skills, in which one was listening, and the other was speaking from the heart. So bringing the heart alive, wondering. Then we looked at how we move away from home, in terms of what is home and our body, our physical home, this earth, etc. And this week was about how sabotage happens. And I feel as you're sharing about listening, I have left people with the question to notice what is the root of why we are not able to fully celebrate and sing the song we were born to sing. And as you unravel listening, towards the end, I will attempt to go into that question just a little bit. But over to you. Today, you are our star.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Kirti, and thank you, Kiran. Yes, we have met. It's a small community that we live in. And thank you, Kirti. Thank you, Monica, for telling me about the 5 a.m. club. You guys are doing a tremendous job trying to build a habit. And we said 21 days, but 21 days of the other kind can also break a habit. So that's where we need to be so careful and we end up sabotaging the habit that we build. So it's the first 21 days that we build the habit, and it's the rest of the 21-day cycle that we ensure that we keep the habit. So I'm so glad that all of you in this pursuit of trying to build that. Coming to what I have to say, I would like it to keep it interactive. So anybody has any questions at any point of time, please feel free to ask at any point of time. Kiki told me to just share how we came to the space and how we got SHB started, or the process of listening that started. I feel these are all very personal journeys, and in every personal journey, you're always answering a need that you feel. So, Kirti, just to give you background, before I started SHB, I used to run a bookstore. Both Monica, Kiran, and many of the participants are aware.
60%. Connected to LAPTOPDA2AK2OU.
Yeah. So, that was a journey that I started. Basically, by background, I'm an HR person. I'm a person. And even when I was running the bookstore, I felt I was matching a book to a need. If somebody needed to read something at that particular point of time, we used to talk. So I knew everybody who came to the bookstore. And it's only when I was closing the bookstore that I was thinking, what is it that I'm going to miss? Am I going to miss the books, or am I going to miss the community? And often I felt that people were coming to the bookstore just as a space to talk and not so much to buy books. And as I was closing the bookstore, I realized that we were now going to miss a space to talk. Books can always be got elsewhere and online, but the conversations that we had built over the years in that space was something that I felt was very precious, valuable. We got to meet different colors of people, different views, and that was not going to be available. The space for that was not going to be available. I myself felt, where am I going to meet my friends again? I mean, of course, we can always visit each other's homes. You can visit in a coffee shop, and that becomes a very deliberate act of meeting. But the spontaneous act of meeting somebody and catching up from where you left the last time happens in retail spaces. Somebody is running a store, you go to a mall, you meet a friend after a long time, and you catch up. So these are not deliberate acts of meeting, but these are spontaneous acts of meeting, and we need spaces where you can just drop in and there is somebody available to always have a conversation. So my friends have made friends in that space. It's not just me. All of us have met various people there, and I felt really the space that we had, one, to have different kind of conversations, and sometimes those conversations went deep. So if you started as a, okay, hi, how are you, and what's happening in your life, and suddenly it went into a next level of depth in terms of that conversation. And that as a space is very critical. We don't have that space anymore within the families. Maybe as we were growing up, there were these spaces available. Today, families are not so functional. Many families are dysfunctional, in fact. So when you're looking at spaces which are safe spaces where people can talk without being misinterpreted, misconstrued, no judgment, I find that dwindling space. And which is why I thought of something like listening posts where people are available, trained, and this requires training. I realized this requires training only after a few months into the job, that we do not listen. We are very eager to talk, and all of us have that. It may not be a born trait, but it's a learned trait that we are all shouting over each other, wanting to make ourselves heard. And if somebody has something important to say, the pause that's required, that is going to keep us quiet and help us listen, is not happening very naturally. Some people have it naturally, but many of us need to learn it. And more than learning it, even if we're aware of it, many of us need to practice it. And even as a practitioner, we often get into default mode where we are again trying to talk over each other. So that practice, like your 5 a.m. practice, we say 21 days. 21 days, yes, it happens. You begin to get it. But just as you're getting to begin to get it, the default settings also happen, and soon we are into factory settings. And we have to make ourselves aware that ये नहीं चलने वाला है, आपको ध्यान से प्रैक्टिस करना है. और वो जो ध्यान है, माइंडफुलनेस जो है, वो सिर्फ प्रैक्टिस से आती है और रोज प्रैक्टिस करने से आती है. और even if you're a seasoned practitioner, so listening in that sense is a practice. So while we may do it as a unit, as a team of volunteers, and do it for the community, as a practice, I think it needs to be available with all of us. As a skill, we need to develop it. If you see where we are going as a community, we just don't have time for each other. We just don't have time even for our intimate relationships. Forget neighbor, colleagues, even at home, spouse, child, parent. And as we see it, I'm a social sciences person. And when I look at psychology, sociology, and the interplay of how it happens within our society, given modernization, the more and more we interact, the more and more alienated we do become. All of us are lonely, even in a crowded family, right? We do not wish to become vulnerable and talk about our issues, even to our closest. We are hiding, we are unable to break the shackles of who you are on the outside and become a different person on the inside. And we can't do that. And we are unable to become vulnerable on the outside also. The best is you become vulnerable as a self and you become who you are and get close to your authentic self to be you. But it doesn't matter who you are, but you are not able to be you. In which case we are ourselves missing authenticity, and we are missing that authenticity also in our relationships, which is such a huge loss. And we are living our lives very incomplete and not wholesome. And to help us get there, we need that friend, we need that safe space who can tell us if we are defaulting to factory settings and be there for us at any point of time. And to build that community for all of us is the challenge. And so we need more and more like-minded people within the community to come together to create that space for others in the community, because that is why we are called साथी साथ बढ़ाना. क्योंकि अगर हम सब साथ में कर पाएं ये एक दूसरे के लिए, basically that's what we are doing for each other. And who has to do it? We have to do it for ourselves. There's nobody going to do it, right? I mean, we all need to learn to take responsibility. There is a time when we say government has to do this, government has to do that. लेकिन government क्या करेगी? ये अपनी culture and our own ability to nurture that space for everyone who is into default settings, for everyone to be able to become vulnerable, for everyone to be able to open up slowly. For some people, the process might be faster. For some people, it may take time. It depends on how you have been brought up. It depends on what thinking and feeling process that you have been through. That each of us may be on a different journey, but ultimately each of us have to make that journey ourselves. I cannot learn from Kiran, I cannot learn from Monica. They have their own journeys. I have to have my own journey. So it is just that space that is available. So it is available for everybody. Initially, people say, oh, is this a space that's available for people going through a problem? People who are having depression, कोई emotional distress हो तो उनके लिए है क्या? ये helpline आपकी किसके लिए है? It's for all of us. It's available for me. And I may not be going through an apparent emotional distress, जो दिखता है सामने. But all of us go through a different set of questioning every time. There may be an interaction yesterday, which I did not enjoy, or something like that. And I'm all the time thinking, कल क्या हुआ था? I mean, I got very annoyed. I got very irritated with this person. What was it in me that was getting provoked? What was it that was getting triggered? And I need to look within. And when I am trying to look within, I may be able to see it. Sometimes I may not be able to see it. So I need somebody to help me see it. So it's, in a sense, people now call it inner engineering. But listening post is a space that helps facilitate that inner look for ourselves. So we call it listening to yourself. So before we start to listen to others, it's a self-awareness program. Our training is basically facilitating that self-awareness, identifying who you are, what are your inner triggers, what are your needs, why are you doing this? If you want to volunteer, आपकी क्या अंदर की जो मांगे हैं, what is getting fulfilled when you volunteer for this program? That itself is a first step that we understand why I'm doing this and what is it that is in me that is getting satisfied when I'm indulging in this act of listening for somebody else. So that is our starting point. When we do our training is a pure self-awareness, as well as also, okay, when you are on a job, on a helpline, there are different kinds of calls. So a few skills related to handling calls. But that's in a nutshell, a capsule of what our volunteers go through. And then we are all engaged together as a team, trying to do this for others. Something that we may have struggled, and I won't say struggled as in the past tense, struggling to do it for ourselves. And now amongst ourselves, we do create the space for each other, even amongst the volunteers, even while we are volunteering for a supposedly external world, all of us still use each other as well as helping us facilitate that internal awareness for us. And that if we can do into larger and larger communities, I think we are en route to building a compassionate society, because that's what we seem to lack, a compassion for ourselves and a compassion for others around us. So yeah, community is important. Thinking more broader than just you and your family is not something that we are born into and taught. If you actually look at our own political and historical process, it was probably Gandhi who taught community, who taught social service, community service before national service. Okay, अपना घर पहले आप साफ रखो, फिर बाहर का देखो, right? So from those thought processes, we have thought of it in a sociological sense. We have thought of it maybe in a psychological sense, but in a psychosocial sense, how to keep myself good within and authentic within, so I can interact with others in the community in that same authentic space without feeling threatened. That's very, very broadly is what we are trying to achieve. But if I say it in so many words, it's going to look like really esoteric. So we functionalize it into something that people can grapple with, which is a helpline that's available when you are going through this internal questioning. And sometimes there's a lot of confusion, there's not enough clarity. So there is a space that you can call and help yourself understand yourself better. That's what we're doing. I think in my, I would like Monica and a few others who are already volunteers to pitch in to further explain what I have just said. I am open to questions. It's easier for me to respond to more specific issues or things about listening that you would like to talk about. But yeah, we have tried to bring a concept into a functional space that community will understand. So from concept, which I just spoke about, to how to actually tool it, or to how to actually make it into a technique that people can use and spread within the community, is this deliverable, which is called Listening Post, a helpline.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, very powerful. And if any questions, feel free to unmute and ask. And Janaki, I have personally felt the need, that to have some of the close friend or someone with whom I can just share, And then I realized some people sharing with me, and even sharing solves half of the problem, when you are emotional and distressed. And we really all need to have this compassion, in us for our loved ones, also for our friends and for the community, for each other. So very, very great thing. And the most beautiful thing is the way you have put it into the action, That's very beautiful to take that and bring on a practical ground. So very impressed by it.
And as I was listening to you, I really found you in your being, in your speaking, somewhere embodying a certain honesty, authenticity. And my question to you, Janaki, is that it's such a beautiful vision and backed by robust action. The question is, what have been your own struggles in making this come alive in the community? Because it's not easy. I can understand this. And also, you beautifully said, I really like that, often we create something out of a need that we have, and obviously there was a certain gap that you felt, inside your life. And so if you could just share, what have been your struggles as you have
Okay.
created this?
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Kirti, for what you are expressing. And I understand the journeys that we are all making. And from your question, answering Kiran's as to what have been my own needs. I moved into Pune in 2020, and I had a kid who was 3 then, and I didn't find a good bookstore to buy books. So I started a bookstore. It was a need that I felt from within. Why I'm saying this is I'm using a concrete example to then explain the next step. And as you transition through life, and I ran that bookstore for 11 years, and then there was this other need as to, okay, the bookstore is fine, but I feel like doing something different. And as we evolve, and what was that something different? Whom do I talk to? I didn't have a person to speak to as to how I now want to transition my life. Okay. As I was closing the bookstore, I was only 47, 48, right? You don't finish life at 60 even today. You don't finish life even at 80 today, right? We have to plan to live till we are 90. Hopefully, we are healthy and contributing. And we work with seniors, and I know that so many of them are so beautiful, making themselves so valuable with their experience at 80 and 80 plus, right? So earning in a job within a corporate or doing something for a living is very different from actually living. And when you're living till 80 plus, you need to find something that you need to do, and also that doing has to give you some joy. So when I was wanting to transition from what I was doing into what next I should be doing, I missed a listening post. So if Kiran, you are asking me what was my need, that was my need. Yes, I had a lot of friends whom I called on in that one intervening year. I did speak to them. I did make appointments. I visited some of them in my office. I called some of them home. I had like a brainstorming and saying, these are my set of skills. This is what I feel the need to do. And this, I think, is a gap that we all need. Do you think it makes sense for me to, mix these three and start something like this? And some people said, who will come? And some people said, who will pay? And some people said, is this going to work? And yes, there was a lot of cynicism. There was a lot of appreciation for the idea, but there was also a lot of, yeah, but it's not like, it's not going to pay. And आप करोगे क्या इसके साथ? So that's where it is. So which is when I thought of the name कि ये मेरा काम नहीं है, ये सबका काम है और ये मैं अकेले नहीं करने वाली हूँ, सब साथ में करेंगे मेरे साथ. मेरे को सब सिर्फ शुरुआत करनी है और एक प्लेटफॉर्म खड़ा करना है और ये प्लेटफॉर्म में लोग आएंगे और जुड़ेंगे. अगर आप नेक काम कर रहे हैं तो पैसा भी आएगा और लोग भी आएंगे. And similar thinking people will associate with you and you can take the work, and I am happy to give the rest of my life to this work. I am not ambitious कि कल ही मेरे को इसको कड़ा करना है. एक छोटी सी शुरुआत we can start with, and then people will join in and it will grow. And true to that, over these 8 years, almost every single volunteer, we are around 28 now, has actually walked in and said, I like the work you're doing, I'd like to join you. Very
Wow.
few times that I have had to actively look for volunteers. Most of the volunteers have joined us from their own need space.
So
And that's
beautiful.
how it works, because then it is satisfying a need for them. And this is the platform that's available, and somewhere the set of values that we profess and we practice, there is a match, and they are finding this a platform to deliver on what they want to do in life. So बस हमने सिर्फ एक प्लेटफॉर्म खड़ी की है, एक स्पेस किया है, एंड पीपल आर कमिंग टुगेदर. और ये सचमुच का एक साथ ही हाथ बढ़ाना हो रहा है. फंडिंग हैपेंस फ्रॉम डिफरेंट पीपल. लोग हमको डोनेशन दे रहे हैं. बेनिफिशियरीज पे अस. इट्स अ पे एज यू विश. इट्स अ फ्री सर्विस. वी आर हैप्पी दैट यू डोंट गिव एनीथिंग. But there are others who have not even used the service, but who are happy to make the donation because they support the cause. So बस we are hand to mouth, but hand to mouth में काम हो जाता है.
So beautiful. In fact, I think, Monica, it would be good to listen to how it has really touched your life as you have touched people's lives, because I know that you've been associated for a while, right?
Yeah, I've been associated with Listening Post for nearly 5 years now. And I walked up to Janki and said, I want to volunteer because I wanted to give back to society. And it was not money that motivates me, to give back money. I was wondering what to do, and I was already a coach. So I thought, okay, Listening Post makes sense because that's what I do as a coach. I have that, I've learned that skill. And Janki said, okay, you may be a coach, but you have to go through the training program. And I went through the training program, which was very, very intense. I know in that group, probably about 20 people had joined and about 4 or 5 people dropped out of the course because it is so intensive. Like it starts to make you, mentally tough to listen to people's problems. And the training course that I did was with a suicidal helpline. So, but Janki made that as an imperative. And I really thank her for that. That's how, we learned how to listen. And it's been a very, very satisfying journey. I'm still there with her. It shows that when you listen to people walk in, talk about their challenges, I went with giving back to society, but I realized it's a gift to my own self, because I then understood, one, I'm not the only one with problems. And two, my problems are not as big as other people's. So it was an eye-opener. I became more courageous in my own life. One. The other thing is, we are listening to people from all age groups. And there was a time when I listened to somebody who was my younger daughter's age. And I listened to her challenges that she faced with her parents. And I started to realize that probably my daughter also faces this challenge with me. How much ever aware I may be as a parent, but I'm not aware of her challenges. And that's because I'm not listening to her when she talks. I'm only advising her. And at the age, she was a teenager then. She was rebelling. She was not listening to the advice. So going through listening posts, listening to people, and seeing that just by purely listening, the transformation happening in people who would walk in. Now we also have a helpline, like people can call, but earlier it was only walk-ins. I started to listen to my own family first, especially my daughters, and it was so beautiful because the connection, we connected. Then I was able to connect to them, and they come back and share with me when they're going through a challenge. Because now they know that I'm listening. I'm not in a mode of just advising them. And many times I don't advise. I just listen to my own children and even in my own family. So I understood that when we listen, what are we supposed to listen for?
Beautiful.
And what is the person really going through? The person may show anger, but underlying that anger, there is a reason. Underlying the rage or the frustration or the sadness, there is something that is unmet. And that is so beautiful. So I think, that's been my journey with Listening Post. And now we did our first batch of training new volunteers. So we are also training them, giving them practice. In that process, we are sharing our own challenges. When we give them practice, they listen to us. And that has been another amazing and powerful experience. It was just, first it was, I am listening to people and then I can see them transforming. But now I'm experiencing being listened to, and that's even more transformational.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a beautiful space. It's absolutely safe, absolutely non-judgmental and confidential, and non-advisory. So I always think, how did Janki think of something like that? It's what we all need. Can you imagine? You can go and speak anything. I mean, we've had people come there and scream their heart out, and we can be present to what they're going through, and they feel so heard.
Wow. Wow.
That's what I like to say.
I'm just like feeling like, hey, I want to come and volunteer over there, and really it's so inspiring. I mean, Janaki, or anybody else also who's part of your team, volunteers who are present, one question that comes is, for today people over here, if you were to share, I mean, this may be difficult, listening in a capsule, of a minute or two, what is it that you as volunteers, attempt to do? Is there a, like, I know it's difficult, to capture the immensity of listening, in a capsule, but would you like to make an attempt, anybody?
Would any of you like to try? Ranjani, Lata, Monica, some of you listeners are here. Would any of you want to answer, Kiran? Or I will do it myself. Please let me know. Anyone is keen?
Go ahead, Janki.
Okay, fine. So when we are, first of all, we are mindful that somebody is in need and that's why they have walked in, or that's why they have called, first of all. That's the starting point. And we are now seeking to understand where they are, what is the issue that they're talking about, and totally respect that person and that space for that time. Right? They have obviously, and that's why when it is a walking or a call, it is of their initiative. Nobody's made them call us or nobody's made them come to us. There are often parents or people who say, I want my wife to come to Listening Post. Then we tell them, sorry, your wife has to make the move. you cannot ask your wife to come. Your wife should feel the need. So first of all, when a person has come or called, they have experienced the need to take that time off to do that call or to come to that space. So it starts from a place of respect and saying, first of all, thank you for trusting us and thank you for coming here to talk about that issue. And then making sure that we are there for that person throughout that session or that call, right? Whatever he or she wants to express, either on the phone or through a walk-in, we're there to understand where is that person coming from, what is the situation, what is the need, what are the feelings behind those situations, what's triggered. And this we ask through a series of non-threatening questions. Sometimes they volunteer the information and we pick it up from there. So it's a conversation that's happening. Sometimes the person is willing to do all the talking without any interruption at all. Sometimes, and we let the pauses happen, because when we let those pauses happen, then they think of something else that's connected, talk of some other incident. Apparently, in our listening, sometimes we may not be able to connect those incidents, but as the person elaborates, or sometimes we do ask those questions and help them. Often in that conversation, the person has started from a particular incident that has been the trigger, or a particular feeling that has been a trigger. And over the course of the conversation has gone somewhere else. And those pauses have helped that happen. Not that we have given direction to that conversation, but sometimes the person himself or herself has, through the process of the pauses, found the clarity and is now expanding on what is really material to the conversation, though it may have started with a small incident the previous day or that day or whatever that triggered that call or that visit. Sometimes we are trying to ask some questions so that we understand better, or we're saying, okay, you said this happened, any particular reason, was something happening that other day, what were you thinking, or were you feeling? So somebody is saying angry, then we're trying to delineate those feelings. Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling helpless? Are you feeling resentment? Do you feel envious of that person? Is that so? What is the basis of anger? Is something that we are, and as we are asking those questions, it is also helping clarify for that person. No, I don't think it's frustration. I think it is just that because I'm not, she's not listening to me. Okay, so and then those things are getting clarified in terms of the conversation. We are trying to get to understand that space better, and they are trying to understand their own situation better as they are talking to us. And we strongly believe in being non-advisory because we feel each person knows his or her situation the best. They know the different participants in their life much better than we will ever know them. And they are capable of finding their own solutions. At points in time, we are caught up with emotional feelings, and the situation is very clouded for us to find our way out of that mess that we may have landed ourselves in. And a different perspective, a different person who's listening to your story may sometimes have that perspective and say, okay, when you were doing this, did you feel this? No, I don't think it was that. I think it was more of this. Now when I'm talking to you, I'm beginning to understand it's more of this. So it's helping clarify for that person. So we really don't need to give any advice. There are people sometimes who do come a couple of times. There are some people who are frequent callers, and we have seen them move in their lives. They have used these conversations to figure out things for themselves and moved. And there are these relationships with our callers that have happened over time, and we make a report for ourselves on every call or every conversation. And when we do go back to the earlier reports, we do understand that person has moved so much grappling with that particular situation or that relationship that they were having trouble with, and they have actually managed the courage and their own confidence in themselves to make those changes happen for themselves, which is very heartening for us because we have really not done anything. We have not advised them anything. They have made those decisions to make those changes in their lives, and all we have done is provided the space, and they have found their solutions. So it is just that वो बीच का वो उंगली पकड़ना, just just helping them on that process sometimes, and sometimes we are helped by that process.
So beautiful. I mean, as I listen to you, and I just want to open up for people, others who have to ask any questions or share how they were touched, because I want to tell you that you have gripped the attention, of 25 people or more, because out of, see, it's like while you have been speaking, I feel that you have a listening presence even as you speak. And that's remarkable. So it's almost like I'm not only inspired to attempt to volunteer, but I also want to actually call the helpline and be listened to, because I know that I have challenges, which I would love to be listened to, and I have the gift of Monica being a very dear friend, of walking with her, and would love to just open this space up, for the other people from Listening Post or the 5 a.m. Club to share, how they were touched or ask any question, because it's already 5:45, and I won't be surprised if we will go beyond 6 today. I mean, we don't want to hold you up if you have to go, but certainly just opening it up now for everybody so that we go out of spotlight and we are just sitting as if in a circle, in a village, as the sun is setting and listening to each other.
I'd like to say something. Firstly, of course, it's really inspiring to listen to, this entire, the foundation of the Listening Post. And thank you very much, Janki, and all the volunteers of the Listening Post. I just want to say, like, when I saw, the WhatsApp post, I was so intrigued because I came across this, I think on Facebook or something, a while back, few months back. And I had a similar idea in my mind, like, that it would be so good to have this. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, like it's actually come alive. And, there is a place where I was really intrigued. And then my first reflex action was, I would like to probably volunteer and be part of it. And then what actually kept me back, like till now, it just made me think that, oh, so then it will be listening, and then maybe, like people with a lot of issues, or like, like Monica said, like the first thing about the suicide helpline, or, for me, I was thinking of the extreme, that people will come with extreme issues. Maybe that would be very draining for me to listen, even if it's for limited hours. But, and also I, in general, like to steer clear from negativity, or, I mean, what I view as negative conversation, like, problems. So my only fear was like, is it going to be very draining? So that's my first question. I've seen the benefits, of course, like, all of y'all shared, and I appreciate that, but I also wonder, is it draining? Because I know whenever we have conversations or we watch or see anything, in the aftermath of that, it keeps on running in your mind somehow. Something like that, or if someone's crying or someone's sharing. So that is my personal fear in terms of volunteering. Second, if I can just list 2-3 questions that I thought of. Thank you. Second is it paid or is it free for someone to just call in? Third is my personal issue, if I were to speak or call the line, was that, this anonymity thing, I'm definitely not the person who would walk in and speak. I'm probably a person who would just want to be anonymous and just, not be known. And then that's where my sharing comes from, because then I get conscious of the other person and I can't share. So that is it. And a third and last question, if I may say, is I think I really loved, of course, your addressed part of it with the methodology, probably of questions and non-judgmental questions, and nudging the person to finding their own solution. Because I think the biggest thing that happens with people who have issues, including me, like if I'm grappling with something, is I want to know now, what do I do? I'm so confused, I don't know what to do. And of course the right thing is not to give advice, you need to do this, that, and guide. So I don't, maybe I've spoken and answered my own question in the third one, but if the other two you could please address. Thank you.
May I? Tessin, you asked all your questions?
Yes, please, Janki, please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll go point by point in terms of what you have asked. And the first question you asked is it draining? Is there a lot of emotional energy, and how do we handle it even if it's for limited time? So one of the first things that we learn is self-care, because we are not taught self-love in our upbringing really. We grow up also, we are not taught self-love. So the most important thing is, when you are doing something like this, the last thing you want to do is to lose yourself in the process. So draining is not something that we all aspire to do, right? We don't want to be drained of our own self. But we do find that the conversation, and there are serious conversations, there are, though we have trained on the suicidal helpline and we talk about this as an emotional distress, there are some very, very difficult conversations that come on the helpline or in the walk-in. And how do we handle this? It's because of a certain connectedness and also of a certain detachment that we practice through our sessions, right? So yes, we do get deep meaning and connection in that conversation. We are with that person, and there are times when it may be disturbing to us, and we do use each other as a support post conversation. We do call each other and say, this is something she said and I'm feeling very disturbed, and we use that. But on and off, I find most conversations we are more energized than drained, because we have helped that person listen to themselves. They have come in confused, but they have gone out more confident. They have gone out more sure of themselves and what they want to do. So that whether 40-minute or 2-hour conversation, when that person came in, how he or she started the conversation, and when that person went, how he or she is going, is a huge indicator for us as to how well that session has happened. And invariably, that session is more rewarding for us. We gain tremendously as a person rather than feel drained. There are maybe 1 or 2 that happens that leave us disturbed, because maybe we have not explored deep enough. There was not enough time in the call. We are hoping that the person will call again, and things have been left a little unfinished, and that may leave us a little disturbed. But invariably, we find that the person comes again or calls again and continues from where they have left off. And there are, of course, people who do not call also, and we are left grappling with, I wonder what happened. We had that call that day. I hope he has taken the right decision, or I hope she's found the space. There are times when we are left hanging, But there are also times when we get to see the full circle, or at least in that day and that particular session, between how it started and how it finished, we feel a sense of completeness during that session itself. So more often than not, it is more rewarding than draining. There is no residue of negative emotion. In fact, there is a surplus of positive energy that's left at the end of the session. So no, we are not drained at all. It's making us feel more confident about doing more such sessions, more deeper conversations, and we are always trying to get deeper into the conversation in every call or in every walk-in. Coming to a second question, it is not paid, it is free. Anybody can call, anybody can walk in, they don't have to pay anything. We ask, there are people who complete the conversation and say, I would like to pay for this session. Is there something I can do? We have, if it has been a walk-in, we have a donation box, we have a QR code, we have a donate page. People donate voluntarily into it. And in fact, it is the donations that help us run. We have an office, we have our own costs of rent and electricity and phones and maintaining that, but 100% volunteers. Nobody gets paid for their time. We do use services of designers and putting up social media posts. So those payments happen, and that goes from the donations that we receive. As a service, it's not a paid service. It's a free service. Anybody can come, any strata of society, and there is no requirement to pay. Your third question was regarding anonymity. Yes, when you visit, to a certain extent, anonymity is not there because we do get to see you and we come to know who you are, at least in terms of face. But when you call, your number is not visible to any of our volunteers. We use a cloud software system. The person on the dashboard, as an admin, I get to see the number, yes, but our callers, our volunteers don't get to see the number. So you have complete anonymity. And you don't have to give any details. You don't have to give your name. And you can talk about your issue. We maintain a record of every call or every conversation. The volunteer makes the report of what that conversation was. And sometimes if you have called again in a week's time or in a month's time, because all volunteers read all the reports. So if you call again in, let's say, in a week's time, whichever other volunteer is on the call that day will take the situation from where you are on that day. There is no need to refer to a past, but sometimes people do talk to us and say that, I called last week and I spoke about this, and that volunteer said something like this. If there is a reference to the conversation, then yes, this volunteer picks up that reference. But otherwise, the conversation is treated as a here and now, and we are talking about that here and now issue only. So it's totally anonymous in that sense. We don't know who you are. The number doesn't go to any of the volunteers. I hope, Tehseen, I have answered all your questions. The fourth question,
Yes,
I think you
very
found
much.
clarity as you spoke. So that's
I
the
think
power
that
of
was on a
listening.
practical level. Yes.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Janki. Very well addressed. And at the risk of probably delaying everyone for a minute more, a quick question came in my mind. Have you ever experienced, like when you spoke about somebody calling back, like suppose, one calls in and the call goes very well with the volunteer and the person, finds their clarity and, now later on when I call back, when I have a second issue, have you ever experienced that the person wants to speak to that same volunteer again?
Yes.
And do I know the name of the volunteer I'm speaking to? And can I choose the person again if that's worked for me in the past?
Sometimes callers do ask us our name, and they do want to know whom they are speaking to. And we have left it to the volunteers for our own volunteer safety. they have an option of using their name or using a assumed name. And callers do call back and do ask for specific volunteer reference and the same volunteer. We really do not like to encourage that because all our volunteers are extremely well trained, and we do not like to have that emotional dependence on that volunteer. So we actively try to discourage. But we have in the past, depending on the situation, like we have had very young people, adolescents, and sometimes we feel they are too delicate in their emotional maturity at that point of time, or too delicate in their situation at that point of time. And in those cases, we have made an exception and we have allowed the same volunteer to handle for a few calls. So we have made exceptions also, but generally as a rule, we do not like to make exceptions. We would like you to call on the helpline. All our volunteers are equally good, and that's the line we take. And it's a fact. So we do have people calling, and all our volunteers have taken their calls. So that has happened also.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jhanki. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Asim. Yeah.
No, I just want to say that this was such a beautiful demonstration of listening deeply, in the way that you heard her. And of course, it must be going much deeper. But thank you. And Charutha, you were about to say something. I noticed you unmuting. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one question, Janaki. You mentioned about listening to ourselves. So is it like that in case of listening to ourselves, it is it gives more satisfaction to get listened, and sometimes we wish to say to someone so desperately that why are you not listening to me, or why are you not this doing to me? So talking to that person directly and opening up in front of SHB people, what is the difference? What can be the difference between two of them? And is it like that SHB is facilitating the tone up or tone down process for the communication to be presented to the actual listener, the actual listener we wish to be, मतलब जिसको कहना चाहते हैं उस तक पहुंचने से पहले टोन अप या टोन डाउन करने में ही फैसिलिटेट करता है क्या SHB?
Okay, I think I have understood your second question, but if I am mistaken, please help me. But I will answer your first question first. Yeah. When we talk of listening to ourselves, the idea is we become self-aware. What's triggering in us? हम कौन है और हमारी unmet needs, feelings क्या है? अगर हम वो पहचान नहीं कर पाते, then when we are trying to listen to, say I am listening to Charu, अगर मेरी unmet need और कुछ है, then I am coming from that space while talking to her. I need to make my base flat. I need to understand कि मेरी अंदर की triggers क्या है, right? अच्छा, I want to show Charu that I am better than her. If that is my need, then I'm coming with a different tone and a different vocabulary when I'm going to talk to Charu, right? So I need to understand my own need. Then if I'm aware of it, I'm a lot more conscious in the way I'm addressing Charu's concern. Okay, I'm getting Charu to understand what we are trying to do. So I'm going to understand what is Charu asking me, and then helping her understand what we are doing. If that is my need, then if Charu's need is getting matched to that, then we are in the same space. Then we are exploring that understanding together. फिर मैं जो बोल रही हूँ आप भी समझ रहे हैं क्योंकि हम एक लेवल पे आ गए हैं अभी, right? So I need to know मेरी क्या need है, what space am I coming from. अगर उसकी पहचान मेरे को नहीं है, so I'm not able to do a good job of answering Charu her questions, right? So that is one. Secondly, you asked me, and please correct me if I've got it wrong, in terms of how you can communicate. If somebody, you desperately want somebody to listen to you, and how do you communicate that, and how does listening to oneself help you communicate that? Is that right? Is that
Partially. Example देती हूँ to make it clear. If I
Yeah.
want to convey something to my dad very desperately, and there
Okay.
may be some emotions like kind of despairment, we can say, or not exactly anger, the lower degree of anger, we can
Fair
say.
enough. Huh?
So before reaching to him, if I talk to a person in SHB, if that degree of despairment or depression or anger comes down, and if it helps me to put it in a more gathered way in front of my dad.
I understand. So what listening post will do for you is help you understand why you need to communicate that to your dad and how you want to do it. What is your need? Okay. वो आप पहचान पाओगे because we can help you listen to yourself. ठीक है, आपको कोई anxiety है and you don't want your dad to make these mistakes, so you're desperate to communicate this to him. And is there other ways of handling that anxiety? Right? If given that you are this age and your dad is obviously a senior citizen, what is their capacity to listen? What is their willingness to listen? आप ऐसे बोलेंगे तो वो सुनने वाले हैं क्या? You may know that even if you are saying this, he is not going to listen. So then, is there any other way for you to address this anxiety that you are going through? And how to address that anxiety is telling him what to do the only way that you can address that anxiety, or other ways there are to explore that situation? That is what listening post will help you. It will help you address your anxiety about that situation. And it will also help you how you can communicate that anxiety, at the same time make him aware of that situation कि इस situation में आपको ये करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए. आप उनको कैसे वो communicate कर सकते हैं. That is what listening post will do for you. It will clarify for you what is the situation, what are your anxieties regarding the situation, why you want your dad to listen to you, and how you are going to present it so that your dad gets what you are saying, whether it is by you telling him or by him recognizing his situation, because then maybe the action may be more true for him.
Yeah,
so that is what we help facilitate your own thought process. And so in this, there is also listening to yourself.
Yeah, it's a wonderful combination of handling emotional intelligence and emotional independence. That's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Janaki.
You know, Janaki, I actually have a question, which arose as you were sharing, of a husband who says, how can I want my wife to, and I really feel that in that moment, two things are happening. One is that he's needing to be listened to, because he's exasperated, but also he's projecting onto his wife what he needs to do. So when I feel that, hey, that other person needs to listen to me, okay, it's very clear that I need to also listen to that person, and I feel this, paradox of listening, if I may say, is at the heart of the challenge. And a specific question, I mean, this is just some insight and sharing, but a question I have which is very relevant in the context of 5 a.m. Just yesterday I was discussing with Kirti Raj, that there used to be a rule that everybody puts on the video, and otherwise there will be a fine of 500 rupees, Now it seems that rule is a little relaxed, allowing people the space to be off video, and that is listening to the reality of their situation. Early morning, they have got up and all, but at the same time there is a need for them to show themselves, and there's a context of the 5 a.m. club. So often there is this dance of balance between the intentionality and the violence of insisting something, and inspiring people to kind of open themselves more naturally, versus opening the bud and killing the flower, nourishing the bud so that the flower opens by itself, So this I want you to speak to, so that we can learn for the 5 a.m. club.
So the first question first, when a person says, I want my wife to come to you, and we recognize that he has a need to be listened, and it often happens also with parents with adolescent children. I want my son to come, I want you all to talk to him. Often, even when parents are sending their children to counselors, they're also telling the counselors what they need to tell the children. So then that's not working, right? So then you're just trying to find somebody else to communicate what you want to communicate to your children through either through listening post or through a counselor. So the idea is, if a person is in that space where they think they need, it is a self-volition thing. You have to come out of your need, whether it is an adolescent, that child, I'm having trouble communicating with my parents, or I'm having trouble in my life, and maybe I need to go and talk to somebody, and this is the thing specifically who do come. We do have spouses, parents, children, like Charu said, this particular issue. We do have in their 50s who say, I want my dad to come to listening phase. He's just not listening. And he's become more adamant, and with growing age is becoming more and more adamant. So how do I deal with him? It's so difficult to talk to him. So I need you all to talk to him. So no, we can't do that. We can talk to you, like I told Charu just now. We can talk to you, understand the space that you are. So even when parents say, I want my children to come, we say, you come. You come as a mother or as a father or as a parental unit, as a couple, and understand the space that you are in and your child is in, because this is an internal communication. You cannot abdicate your parental responsibility to us. It's your job. And in the process of building that communication, you are going to build a better relationship with your kid. We are just going to help you understand where you are, where the child is maybe, and maybe help you reframe that communication better for yourself to do it. We are helping facilitate your skills. We are not going to become the parent, right? So that is something that a conversation often happens with the person who calls, who says, why don't you talk to this person, so and so person. Coming to your second point of allowing a process to grow, like when you said about having a video on or video off, each thing has its time. सबकी अपनी अपनी तैयारी होती है. How vulnerable I am willing to be. Each person is at a different point in that spectrum, and allowing that process to happen when they are ready is a better way to do it. Though you can make your intentions clear, and we say we want people to connect, and that is why we are requesting all of you to keep your video on. But like you said, insisting on the violent act of making it compulsory may make it difficult for some people, and they may decide not to join in because it is a compulsory thing. Some people may start with video off in the first 2 or 3 sessions or 4 sessions even, and some people may spend that full 21 days without keeping the video on because maybe they are not ready. And you have to allow them that time and space for them to become ready from within, to be able to come out and be there with all of you with the video on. So allowing the space to each person, because each person is so different. but at the same time making the intention clear, saying this is why we like you, but then now it's your time and your space, and you can figure out when you are ready. And when you are ready, please do so. So that balancing of intention, but at the same time giving agency to that person to choose when is probably closest. I don't know if I don't know the members of IAM, but generally even in listening post we allow the agency with the person. So the decisions are taken by the person. We are only helping in the conversation. We are not even nudging the decision.
Nice.
I don't know if I've answered.
No, pretty much. I
what
think you have
you
answered
asked,
very
Kiran,
much.
yeah.
And I just want to see if anybody else wants to.
They are way past the time limit.
I know, and I think you also must have to go. So maybe we could just conclude now, because we don't want to overstretch you and others who are here. So thank you. And anybody would like to just express like really a deep gratitude for, I don't know if you normally get up so early, but certainly for us, you got up this early. And you can see in the chat, there's a lot of beautiful comments. Love the intentions of SHB. Had a wonderful time with Janki and all SHB volunteers. Thanks for coming and sharing. Desina Singh, thank you very much once again, Janaki and team. And Nanesh said, so I think Abhishek, yeah, beautiful. Yeah. I mean, maybe, Kirtiraj, we could have a track on listening only, for 21 days. And that would be so precious. So, this is how new tracks develop, by invitation. And we see that, I mean, this is such a crying need in society today, and so rare, even in families, I wish this could touch families. Thank you. And it is touching families. So thank you very much. Monica, anything you want to say as we are ending?
I'm just grateful to Kirtiraj that, it all started with my background on Zoom. Janki had put the background for recording and I'd forgotten about it. And he started that conversation. And Janki's initiative is so beautiful that it needs to be spread. So many people can benefit by just calling and, having being listened to. So yeah, I think that's what I want to say. I mean,
yeah. I'm certainly going to call and volunteer, attempt to volunteer.
Thank you, all of you, so very much for listening to me for almost an hour now. And I'm very grateful because it's the community that we need. It's the community that is giving us the volunteers. It's the community that is giving us the donations to sustain our activity. And that's the only way to go forward, to help all of us build listening skills, which is so critical. As we get more and more alienated with technology, we need more and more connections with other humans. So it's a crying need for the future. It's a crying need for the future generations to come. And if we can instill this in our children, help them listen better, it will help them become better persons, better people. And I heard a line yesterday which I'd like to say. It's like when you look at land, if we think the land belongs to us, then the way we treat the land is different. But if we think that I belong to the land, the way we look at life and perspective is different. So that's the same thing with the community. Does the community belong to us, or I belong to the community? If I belong to the community, I'm willing to do things for the community. because then there is give and take. And I may not even know when I'm giving, and I may not even know when I'm taking, but we are all in harmonious relationship with other elements in the community. So to me, that's the basis, that we learn to live sustainable. In this sense, I'm using sustainable development as relationships within the community, and that's how we make sustainable communities. कि हम आपस से सीखें और हम साथ ही हाथ बढ़ाएं. So somebody has asked, how do we connect with you? The organization is called SHP Social Foundation. SHP standing for Sati Haath Badhana. You can Google us. We have our website. All our numbers are there. So we are also available on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find us there. I hope you've answered the question. Last person who asked on chat.
Yeah, and there was a request on the side from one of the people who's present that would you be willing to join the WhatsApp group for a day if you want to just share or ask something, because we have a WhatsApp group. And of course, I mean, we'll totally understand if you are uncomfortable doing that.
I'm happy to join, but you have Monica, who is a fantastic votary of what we stand for.
Exactly.
And she's fully capable of answering all the questions. But I have no objections also if you want to put me in for a day.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think something about the presence of each person, which is unique, although I'm sure, I mean, knowing Monica, she's amazing. But I think, thank you for your willingness. So, in 5 a.m. Club, we have something known as the afterflow, and the afterflow has, extended today. But we just allow people, whoever wants to leave. And, it's like, I want to end by saying this line, which I had shared in my listening session. In fact, one day I conducted, but nowhere as deeply and beautifully as you did. But I would say that I said, the decision to listen is the decision to love.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and it also comes from a place of self-love. I mean, do we care for ourselves and where we are and how we learn to do that? And then there is that fullness and abundance that helps us share. So that's the space that we all need to get to.
Yes.
Though we live within the narrow confines of our societal roles, and we are expected to behave, and we are looked at if we are trying to do something different, but that's okay. That's something that we need to take through and become vulnerable and accept that it's part of our journey. It may or may not be part of other people's journey.
Yes. I don't know why I'm looking at Ranjani and Lata, who are, I guess, volunteers who are present over here. And of course, I'm not wanting to hold on, because if you have to leave, please leave. But if there's anything that you feel like sharing about how much it has touched you as, in the journey or anything, just as we are saying goodbye, and please feel free to leave if you have to, anybody. I mean, yeah.
Would like to take that. Actually, a listening post has helped, I think I would say, for all the volunteers, each one of us, to understand ourselves better, and also to increase the quality of our listening. As Monica had mentioned, we started listening to our children, families, and colleagues, and also we would take an alternate, like now you spoke about spouses, and we would always, for me at least, I would always wonder why my husband was behaving in a certain way and all. But then listening has even helped me grow and develop into a I would say, I wouldn't say just understanding, but a more empathetic person. And so that way, it's really made a lot of changes in me. So this is how it has helped me.
Thank you. And what percentage of men are volunteers? It's just a question. I mean, mostly I'm sure there must be more women, is my sense. Do you have any men volunteers?
Yeah, right now we have 2. We had 4. 2 of them have taken a break. So now we have 2. And we would definitely want more men
Yeah.
as part of our volunteering group.
Yes.
Because for women, it seems to come naturally
Yeah.
because of their family roles.
Yeah.
And then they come here and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
practice their skills.
Yeah.
But we have had wonderful men
Yes.
with us, and we have 2 others now who are really good. And men also have that capacity. Unfortunately, we look at these as very gendered roles and make these statements like just now Dee has made, saying women are better listeners. No, men can be very good listeners, and they bring very different perspectives to that conversation. And so we definitely need more men as
Yeah.
well. But right now, I would look at it as a 70-30,
Okay.
given that we have had 2 men who are taking breaks because
Mm.
post-COVID work has picked up for them. Yeah, I
Right.
understand, yeah, that it was
You know,
in a lighter note. But yeah,
yeah,
we need
yeah.
to say that men can be very good listeners, like Kiran is already.
Thank you. In fact, I feel if we just shift the perspective to there is a feminine in us, that
Yes,
listens.
correct.
And the men have the feminine, energy
Yes,
inside us, the left brain, right brain, different ways of looking at it. So do not make it about gender. But I've met many men
correct.
who can be better listeners, than some women, for example,
Absolutely.
So I think that's,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So it's the yin and yang in us, and it's a spectrum, and where we stand on each day, we may be different also. So it's
Yeah.
really the person, and the yin can really surface for a man,
Yeah.
and so it's about that.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to extend the conversation. Kirti, thank you
No, no,
very,
no.
very much for this opportunity.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have
I
enjoyed
actually,
this interaction.
I am so grateful. Thank you so much, Janki, for coming and taking out time. I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it along with your time. And also thank you, Ranjani, Lata, Monica, Rekha for being with us. I think Sangeet so from all the time. So thank you so much for your time and your presence. So grateful. And very things to learn. A lot of IOMers have taken it away. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kiran. Thank you,
Thank you.
Monica. Thank you, Kirti. And thank you to other co-volunteers for having joined the morning session. Wonderful.